Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Shiur on silly superstitions. And really, what I want to go through with you is a whole lot of Boba masses. And I want to see if there's any veracity, any Torah sources for them. And I must tell you that if you don't study your superstitions, you won't know if they are Torah superstitions, in inverted commas, or if they are other superstitions. Because I can tell you some things, and I don't think you would be able to discern if they are or if they are not Torah, if they come from the Torah, or if they, or the, when I say Torah, I don't mean the scrolls, I mean the whole of Torah literature, Kabbalah and Midrashim. So, for example, let me throw one out there. When you cut your nails, you mustn't leave the nails on the floor because a pregnant woman who steps on them could miscarry. So that sounds like a superstition. It sounds like a real Boba Masa, but that's actually brought down in the Kabbalah and something that a person has to be very careful of disposing of their fingernails and toenails when they cut them, because it's not a good idea to let them fly around. Um, Also, there's a book written by Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, and he lists 37 things from all different sources in the Gemara and the Midrash and other books, the Mishnah, and he lists 37 things that if you do these things, it will cause forgetfulness. So just a quick reading through it, and you'll see all of these are legitimate Torah sources. They all come from various books of the oral Torah, the Gemara, the Mishnah, the Midrash. One day I'll give you a shiur on what the difference is between all those things. To not this last Shavuot, but Shavuot before that, I gave a whole shiur about the evolution of Jewish knowledge and how we got from a Torah scroll all the way to Gemara and Shas and Midrash and Rambam and Ramban and what do all these things mean. But that's a whole different and interesting learning in and of itself. But just bear with me that what I'm going to read, these 37, I'll read them quickly, all come from very legitimate Jewish sources. These are the things the rabbis tell us will cause forgetfulness if you don't revise enough. Well, that's quite obvious. Number two, arrogance. Number three, anger. Whenever Moshe got angry in the Torah, he forgot halacha. Number four, worry. Number five, if you have spend a long time eating your meals. Number six, getting busy with nonsense. Number seven, not standing up for your rabbi, your teacher. Number eight, not washing in your hands in the mornings from Shulchan Aruch. Number nine, eating what an animal has left over. So, you found a nice piece of cheese and a mouse has nibbled from it. If you eat that cheese, you will forget your Torah. Number 10, eating levavot, or animal hearts. And I know I've been to a restaurant in Israel where they actually serve levavot. It's a delicacy. They put it on a skewer and you can have chicken hearts. But yeah, according to this, if you eat it, it will bring forgetfulness. If you eat more than 7 olives, if you drink bath water, if you bath with leftover drinking water, if you wash your legs on top of each other instead of separately, if you sleep on your clothing, if you walk under a camel, if you walk between two camels, if you walk between two women, and if a woman walks between two men, and if you walk by a rotting corpse, and if you walk under a dry bridge is, I guess, there used to be a stream and now it's dried up, and now you walk under that bridge. Eating half-baked bread. Now, that's a problem for me because I love cookie dough. You can get cookie dough ice cream and it's half-baked cookies, but you're not allowed to eat half-baked bread. There's another one here, number 23, some type of meat, which I don't know what it is, zuhamalistron, it's called. So don't eat that because you're going to lose your memory. Drinking from a stream that flows through a cemetery. 25, looking into the face of a corpse. 26, reading a tombstone. That comes from three sources, from Horias, which is a Gemara, Gittin, which is a Gemara, and Mishnah Berurah, which is a book of halakha, of Jewish law, that you're not allowed to read a tombstone. So over here, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, who just passed away a few years ago, he puts all these together and he explains each one of them and where they're coming from and what they're trying to do and what the rabbis were trying to teach us. It's a very interesting shiur in and of itself. But if I just pulled one of these out and read them to you, they sound like superstitions. They sound ridiculous. So reading a tombstone, the rabbis then say, no, 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 that's only if the wording is embossed. But you're allowed to read a tombstone where the wording is engraved. And then the other rabbis who say, no, it's only if you read it aloud when it's embossed. But if it's embossed and you don't read it aloud, then it doesn't affect you. Anyway, standing in a sauna, 27. 28, talking to women in public, I guess, if you're a man. If you're a woman, you won't be able to help yourself. 29, watching animals mating. 30, swapping your shoes or your clothes inside out. Number 31, sewing clothes on your body. That's, I don't know if your bobbers ever did that. They made you put a piece of thread in your mouth. You're not allowed to sew a button on your shirt while you're wearing the shirt. There's a whole lot of those as well. Drinking non-kosher milk is in this thing. Number 33, putting on two garments simultaneously. Number 34, drying your hands on your clothing without a towel. Number 35, leaving your Sforim open, your holy books, leaving them open and not closing them when you finish using them. Cutting your nails in order is 36, and number 37 is looking into the face of an angry person. So all those 37 have sources in the various books of Torah. And I can read to you a whole lot of others when I was researching this, pages and pages from A to Z. I didn't even print them all because it was already 6 pages just from A to L. That also sounds crazy. You should carry an acorn. It'll bring you good luck. If you see an ambulance, you should sing, touch your toes, touch your nose, never go in one of those until you see a dog. It's bad luck to put a hat on a bed. So, I mean, how do you know what's right and what's wrong? Before slicing a new loaf of bread, you must make the sign of a cross on it. That sounds very dodgy, especially if you're a Jew. Putting a broom in a tree if you don't want it to rain on your wedding. A cricket coming into a house brings good luck. A dog howling at night when someone is sick in the house is a bad omen. Wearing new clothes on Easter to give you a good new year. Bad luck to cut your fingernails on Friday or Sunday. When you eat fish, you should always eat from the head of the fish to the tail. So, I mean, I can read all of these. A frog brings good luck to the house when it enters the house. If you pull out a gray hair or a white hair, it will cause 10 more to grow in its place, etc., etc. And that's only till K, which is knaf. So I ask you, what do we do? What do we do? We're going to hear all this stuff in our lives. Some of them from your Baba. My granny always said, you're not allowed to step over your little brother because he won't grow. Well, I was quite happy about that because I wanted to be tall. So I always used to step over him, but I don't think he's taller than me. I think it worked. Or don't sit on the corner of a table because you won't get married. Or don't eat the last piece of challah. If you eat the last piece of challah, you're not going to get married. You mustn't cut your fingernails in order. You got to skip one fingernail to another fingernail. So you're going to hear all these things. You've heard all these things. Black cats, broken mirrors, dropping salt, not passing the salt. I've been to many tables where they don't pass the salt hand to hand. They just put it down. And there's also not passing the challah hand to hand. You've got to put it in a vessel. So what do we do with all this stuff? How do we know if it's nonsense or if it's Torah? And as I said to you, please don't get me wrong. I'm not putting Torah down, but some of the ones, the 37 that I read to you, do sound a little bit superstitious. So look, I believe that I'm quite a rational thinker. I don't believe in Harry Potter Judaism or hocus pocus Judaism. I believe there's a rational reason for everything. And I must tell you that a lot of stuff that we do in Judaism for the dead, you should not do while you are alive. So, for example, sewing a button on your shirt while the shirt is on your body is not a good idea, because that's what we do to the dead. We sew the tachrichim, the shrouds, around the person once the person is in it. Also, cutting nails in order is what we do to a dead body when during the tahara process. So you don't do that to a living person. Also, pouring water over the back of your hand like that. You want to pour it into your glass, so you pour it like that. That's not allowed. And I think if you go to a fancy restaurant, not that I've been to one, I'm a rabbi, and I haven't found a kosher one, but they come there, the waiters, and they pour your wine over the back of their hand, into your cup. So apparently that's how they pour water over a dead body. So there is a theme emerging over here, and that is anything that has something to do with death. You will find a lot of Jewish, I'm going to call it superstitions in inverted commas. You'll find a lot of Jewish superstitions around that, because Judaism celebrates life. And we try and stay away from death as much as we can until we can't anymore. And then it's not our problem. Then it's someone else's problem. But while we're living, we're meant to celebrate life. We're meant to enjoy life. We're meant to use every opportunity of life to get closer to each other and closer to Hashem and closer to Hashem's Torah. That's the idea of life. And anything that we do that's death associated or associated with death, we stay far away from that in Judaism. And therefore it makes sense not sewing a garment on yourself. I don't know how it helps putting a thread in your mouth. Maybe because a dead person doesn't have a thread in his mouth. So now you are distinguishing yourself from someone who's not alive. Also, it doesn't really make sense to me. But what does make sense, what is rational in my mind, is don't do anything that's associated with death. Do everything that is associated with life while you're living. And don't even say the names of illnesses, and just don't even bring that negative energy into your lives. And that's the feeling I get about Judaism. Then when it comes to this list of 37 things that cause forgetfulness, if you actually go through them with a fine-tooth comb, you'll see that there's a common denominator with all of them. And really, the common denominator is it's a personality disorder. A lot of them represents a type of person who's always looking for shortcuts. Like, for example, you're in such a hurry, you don't want to look for a towel, so you wipe your wet hands on your clothes, or you drink your bath water. I mean, you're so lazy. You put two pieces of clothing on at the same time because you're lazy. So that engenders in a person the type of lazy attitude that would cause forgetfulness in Torah, because he's displaying symptoms of a person who just doesn't really want to study, doesn't really care about the stuff that he has. It's showing the common denominator is showing someone who's looking for shortcuts in everything they do. And if that's your attitude to Torah, then you're never going to remember the Torah that you're learning. So I think when the rabbis say these, they're not superstitions. They're actually good advice, that a lot of these things have to do with a personality type, symptomatic of a person, climbing through a window, they say, will make you lose your memory. But because you're too lazy to go around and find a door, so you're just looking for shortcuts everywhere. It's that type of bad attitude that type of person will forget Torah. I must be honest, though, some of them I don't understand, like eating 7 olives or reading a tombstone, why that would make you lose your memory. I can't really tie that into the overarching principle that I just mentioned, but maybe with a bit of study and really digging into these things, a person could understand a bit better. Walking over a grave. I must tell you, I never really understood the one about if you get cold shivers down your back, it means someone walked over your grave. Hello, I don't have a grave. I don't know about you, but I'm here. I've got a flat. and a car and a shul, a seat in shul, but I don't have a grave. Maybe some people do. Like, when would someone walk over your grave that you would get shivers down your spine? So I don't really understand that. But in Judaism, you're not allowed to walk over a grave. But that's for an entirely different reason. It's not a superstition, and that is because you're not allowed to get any form of benefit from a dead body. And by stepping over a grave, instead of walking around a grave, you're saving yourself 2 steps. So you just got 2-stepped benefit from a dead person, and you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to get any benefit. That's why in Jewish law, you're not allowed to plant anything in the grave. You're not allowed to get any nutrients from the grave. It's meant to just be there for the person that's in there. It's not for anyone else's benefit in any way whatsoever. So a lot of the Jewish stuff has meaning. When Rosh Hashanah time comes, we dip an apple in honey. Wow, that's really going to give you a sweet year and diabetes if you have a lot of honey. So, like, why are you going to do that? Or my favorite one, you eat celery and lettuce and raisins, because if you do that, it says, let us have a raisin celery, because you're going to your boss is really going to like you. So, because you ate lettuce, raisins, and celery on Rosh Hashanah, it sounds like a bit crazy, but it's printed in the Siddur, it's printed in the Machzor. And interestingly, when I was looking over some of these things here, it says on Easter you should wear new clothing, as I mentioned to you earlier. It will give you good luck throughout the year. But we do the same thing on Rosh Hashanah. We wear new clothing because we want to have, but that's really also halachic. We want to have the ability to say Shechianu on the second day of Yom Tov, because we've already said it on the first day of Yom Tov, and we need an excuse to say Shechianu, so you wear something new. But still, it doesn't take away from the fact that Judaism does have a lot of this stuff. So what we need to do, when you hear something that smells like a superstition, your job is to research it. And today you have no excuses. It's not like in the old days where you only had World Book Encyclopedia and you only had the first 6 volumes because then your mother forgot to carry on paying. So you only got up to like the letter G and you never got any more. That never happened to me, by the way. I never even got the letter A. But today you don't have an excuse not to look up everything you can. The entire knowledge of everything is on the internet, on ChatGPT, on every other AI, and it can give you a full, detailed description. And now there's a button on ChatGPT which is like delve deeper. And if you hit that button, ChatGPT will spend a few minutes and go really deeply into the subject that you are looking at. So let's take a few. You mustn't walk under a ladder. You mustn't walk under a ladder. So now the question is, what's the reason for that? So any ladder that you open up, whether you open it up on the ground, will make a triangle, or if you open a ladder up against the wall, it makes a right angle triangle. And the ladder and the triangle represents the Trinity. And if you walk under it, you're breaking the Trinity. So, you might be misconstrued to be in league with the devil. And a good Christian should not be in the league with the devil. So if you're a Jew, should you walk under a ladder? Well, I guess if it's dangerous, then it's not a superstition. Then it makes sense. Then you definitely shouldn't walk under a ladder. But if your motivation is from the superstitious, and you've checked that it's not a Torah superstition, and its roots are deeply enshrined in avodah zorah, in idolatry, then you should stay far away from it and don't get involved with those superstitions. They are not Jewish in any way. Beware of Friday the 13th. I think is this week Friday the 13th? Let me just check my calendar. Should you be worried about Friday? Yep, it's Friday the 13th this week coming. Should you be worried about Friday the 13th? All right, well, I'll tell you where it comes from according to the internet. Friday is the day that Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden. Noah's flood started on Friday, and Jesus was crucified on a Friday. Also, the 12 witches plus the devil are present at satanic ceremonies. So if you got Friday and you add 13, you have a deadly combination. So I hope that assuages you to never worry about Friday the 13th. Again, it has its roots in Christianity. What about saying bless you, God bless you, to someone who sneezes? So originally in the 6th century, they used to congratulate people for sneezing because they were expelling evil from their bodies. So now you read that. What do you do now? We know that that's not true. We know that's not true. So should you say bless you to someone who sneezes, or is that a superstition? So I must tell you, there's actually a Gemara. The Gemara says you must say to someone in Aramaic, asuta. Asuta means, it sounds Japanese, but it's actually Aramaic. It means good health. I think there's a medical aid in Israel called asuta. In Israel, they love to be like hoity-toity. They use Aramaic terms to sound like important in Israeli society. So the Gemara says you must say asuta to someone who sneezes. And the reason it gives is because the Midrash says that all the antediluvians, if you don't know what that word means, you can also check it up. The antediluvians were those who lived 900 years, very long ages, very long lives, and they lived before the flood. And they never got sick. The idea of sickness and old age only came much later to the world. In the beginning, humankind were these very sturdy beings, giants, some of them, who lived a very long life and never got sick. So how did they die? At the end of their life, they would just sneeze and their soul, their neshama, would leave them. So from then, we always say to someone who sneezes, asuta. And therefore, you would be allowed to say, bless you, God bless you. Gesundheit, zu gesund zu leben, zu wachsen, zu quälen. Ein alter Bubbe zu wählen, bis 120 full of... My granny used to say that to me. Anyway, so you should become an alter Bubbe, an alter Zayda, because it's linked to, again, to death and the neshama leaving the body. So that we bless someone. So that's not a bad one. All right, what about spilling the salt? Come on, I'm sure some of you people spill the salt and are paranoid and petrified. So listen to this, that Judas spilt the salt during the Last Supper, but they can't really prove that claim. But anyway, if that's the reason, then that's linked to Christianity, and it's not a good idea to follow that at all. Although some say that salt in the olden days was a very precious commodity. And in fact, people were paid, instead of a salary of money, they were paid in salt. So if you spilt any of it, you're wasting a lot of good money over there. It was like a big deal. But then the real superstition is that you must throw some over your left shoulder. And the reason for that is to strike the nasty spirits in the eyes, thus preventing sickness. So again, people, please, if you drop the salt, just pick it up. And you can pass salt from hand to hand. Challah, bread, however, you mustn't pass bread from hand to hand. Now, this is interesting. This is actually brought in halakha. I hope I'm confusing you nice and properly, because there are people that are so confused. They will not pass the salt to each other, but they'll pass bread from hand to hand. So here it says it's got to do with mourning, that a person who's in mourning, you feed him from your hand and you give him bread from hand to hand. But if a person's not in mourning, and Baruch Hashem, everyone's good and fine, so you mustn't pass bread to him. In fact, Sfardim, if I'm right, I might be misquoting, Sfardim throw the bread to each other because they don't want to pass it from hand to hand. Ashkenazim, what we do is we put the bread in a bread basket and we pass the basket around the table so everyone can take a bit of bread, but you're not actually passing the bread from hand to hand. What about black cats? So this is also interesting, that in ancient Egypt, there was a goddess called Bast, B-A-S-T, and Bast was a female black cat. And the Christian priests wanted to wipe out any traces of other religions, so they told their ignorant followers to destroy any evil demons that were black cats. And shame, sometimes the black cat was looked after by a sweet old lady. So they would kill her also because they believed her to be a witch looking after these evil spirits. So again, you got to research it and not worry about black cats because it's nothing to worry about. Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. It's bad luck to kill a ladybird. You know why? I don't know why, but it's got to do with the Virgin Mary. So it's probably not a good idea to care about that if you're a Jew. What about a scapegoat? So that actually comes from the Torah. On Yom Kippur, they used to have a goat that they would send off a cliff and it would take the sins of the Jewish people. That one's actually in the Torah itself, in the scrolls, and that's where the concept of a scapegoat comes from. There's some other interesting things over here. I think that one about eating the last piece of the challah, the ends. There's some people who won't eat the ends of the challah. So maybe, or taking the last piece of bread out of the bread thing, they say you won't get married. So again, let's use our rational minds and say that if you want to be successful in marriage, you have to be a person of chesed. If you're going to take the last thing for yourself, you're displaying a trait of selfishness. And that probably won't bode very well for marriage. But sitting on the corner of a table, I don't know where that comes from. That doesn't seem like it has any application in halacha. Let's talk a little bit about mirrors. If you break a mirror, what do they say? You get 7 years of bad luck. So I don't know about that, and I don't know where that comes from, but that also doesn't sound like a Torah thing to me. But on the other hand, when you go to a base oval, when you go to a shiva house, you will see that we cover the mirrors. So what's going on? Are we scared of the bad spirits and the bad luck in a oval? The answer, there's a few answers. The simple answer, the halachic answer, is that you're not allowed to pray where there's a mirror or a photo, because a photo will distract you, and a mirror looks like you're davening to yourself. So we don't have any mirrors in shul, and we don't have any photos in shul, so that's fine. But in someone's home, we're going to be davening there because they are mourning someone who passed away. So they have mirrors and photos. So because people are going to daven in that room, we cover the mirrors and the photos so that people can daven in that room without looking at themselves and being distracted while they're davening. So that's a practical halachic reason for covering the mirrors. It's not a superstition in any way or any form whatsoever. Another thing is, this is the one I like. I don't know if it's true, but I made it up myself. That's why I like it. A picture represents the past, right? If you look at a picture, it's showing you something that happened in the past. A mirror represents the present, right? You won't see the past or the future in a mirror. You'll see the present in a future. Now, in a shiva house, the past is very sad because you're remembering the person who passed away. That's why we say passed away. Just kidding. And the present is not very nice either because everybody's in mourning and everyone is sad. So we cover the two things that will add additional sadness to a very sad place. And really, our eyes should be towards the future. We should be looking towards the future because the future always has hope. The future always has rebuilding, and life can only get better from this point onwards. So we cover the things that remind us of the past, and we cover the things that remind us of the present, and we only focus on the future. That's my reason. If you like it, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. I don't mind either way. But the real reason is because you're davening in the room and you're not allowed to daven in front of a mirror or a picture, which is also very logical. Also, superstitions that have logic, you should follow them if they are logical. Like, for example, the ladder. If it's logical that it could fall on a person and kill them, so don't walk under a ladder. That is logical. That's a very clever thing to follow. But if you're not sure about a superstition, where it comes from, the best thing to do is research it and see. Because if its sources are in Avodah Zorah, by keeping them, you are actually you could be breaking the Torah law of not worshiping idols without even realizing. I mentioned over here bread. Before slicing a new loaf of bread, you have to make the sign of a cross on it. So that is a superstition. But I don't know if you've ever been to a home where they're making hamotzi, and the guy who's making hamotzi will take the knife and he'll make a mark on the bottom challah. So, oi, did he just do something dodge? Is that a dodgy superstition from the Bobbermaster sheet? Is it something we should worry about? So there's actually a very interesting. I don't want to be too belabor the point, but in Jewish law, there's a concept called ein ma'avirim ala mitzvot. You're not allowed to bypass a mitzvah. So if you have a mitzvah in front of you, you're not allowed to bypass the one in front of you and go to the one behind it and do the mitzvah behind that mitzvah. Let me give you an example, like taking the Torahs back to the ark. You take the first Torah, you should take the Torah that Maftir was read, but if it's not the first Torah, then you take the first Torah. You don't skip over the first Torah to get to the second Torah. Or if your mother and your father asks you for a drink and you walk up to them and your father's hand is out first, you don't bypass your father to go to your mother. You do whatever mitzvah comes first. You don't jump over a mitzvah. Okay. That's the pre-knowledge you need. Now, when it comes to challah, I don't know where the source is for this, but in the day of Shabbos, you're meant to eat the top challah, and at night, you're meant to eat the bottom challah. The problem with the bottom challah is that there's a top challah in the way, and you're not allowed to pass over a mitzvah to get to another mitzvah. So how do we get around that problem? So by taking your knife before you make the brocha and demarcating the challah where you're going to cut, the bottom challah, you are indicating that you're not passing over the mitzvah. You have demarcated the bottom challah, even though it's not the first mitzvah that comes to your hand. So again, you can be very confused because you read this stuff and some of it does have Torah sources and some of it doesn't have Torah sources, and you really need to ask your favorite rabbi if you should keep those laws or don't keep those laws. I read here, if a dog howls at night when someone in the house is sick, it's a bad omen. So that's interesting. The Gemara in Brochus, this is a Gemara now. The Gemara says that when the Malach HaMoves comes to town, when the angel of death comes to town, all the dogs start howling because humans can't sense the angel of death, but animals can sense the angel of death. And dogs will start howling for no reason. However, the Gemara says, if there's a female dog in the area, then you don't have to worry about it. They're probably howling for the female. It's got nothing to do with the angel of death. But it's interesting that actually crept in to this list of superstitions, but it isn't actually. It does have some sources in the Gemara. Here, eating fish from the head all the way to the tail. So on Rosh Hashanah, we go for the head of a fish, and we say, Yehi Ratzon, that Hashem should make us like a head, a leader, and not a follower this year. Fingernails as well. We learned here that you should either burn or bury your fingernails, and that comes from a list of superstitions, non-Jewish. But in halakha as well, as I said to you originally, and I don't know the reason for this, and I can't use my rational mind to make any rhyme or reason out of it, but it's got to do with pregnant women and miscarrying and the danger of cut nails. It's so beyond my pay grade. But I just keep the law. And what do we do with it? You flush them down the toilet, which is akin to burning them or burying them, because you're never going to find them again. And that is the way you're meant to treat nails. You're not meant to sit there cutting your nails and letting your nails fly everywhere. So when it comes to those things, so I would say if you have researched it, and it's not a Torah thing, and it's not a Christian or a Avodah Zorah idol worship thing, and it doesn't come from any pagan, ancient Egyptology or anything like that. So I would imagine a person should err on the side of caution. Just because you don't understand how electricity works doesn't mean you should stick your fingers in the holes in the wall where there's a plug point. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you're going to be saved from it. So rather be cautious until you actually find out. and ask people and research it until you know for sure what the thing is. And if it's got to do with Avodah Zorah, then stop doing it straight away because, as I said, it could be akin to um, to worshiping idols. But if it's got a Torah source, then well done for not falling into it. So, just because we don't understand everything in this world, and just because not everything is rational in our rational minds, and that's hard for me to swallow because I love everything being rational, but I do understand that some things just aren't, or that my mind is just not clever enough to understand them. So I do bow to the superior intelligences of the rabbis who lived before us. And I would say that I wouldn't cut my nails and let them fly all over just because I don't understand it. Rather bury them and be careful with my nails. I don't understand it. It makes no sense, but I respect the rabbis who brought that down. And maybe one day I will find the reason and I'll be like, sure, thank God I never let my nails fly all over the show. So that's your homework. When you hear a superstition, see if it has a rational, scientific, or Torah explanation. If it doesn't and you're in a doubt, ask. And if you have found out about it and it's idolatrous or something like that, then you definitely mustn't keep it at all and rather break it and not care at all about that superstition. But don't be surprised if you see that some superstitions are shared among various religions. So just be careful of those ones as well. So yes, they are a big deal, even though they're boba masses. Some of them could be a big deal, and therefore a person should err on the side of caution. Just before we end, I see Barry's here, and I just want to thank Barry. He is sponsoring this shiur in honor of the yortzeit of his Zayda, of his late Zayda. And I must just tell you, the shiur is open to anyone who wants to sponsor. And if you sponsor it, you can choose the topic. Give me a week or so to research the topic. And it's actually the greatest thing you can do for someone who has passed away because Torah is the greatest thing in this world. Hashem used the Torah to create the world. And when a person passes away, all that's left is their pure mind, not their brain, their mind. And their mind just gets filled of Torah. So when you are learning in the memory of someone who's passed away, and you're learning Torah, the same Torah that their mind is engaged with, the mind of Hashem and the mind of the universe, engaged in Torah, which is the blueprint of the universe, that is the greatest thing you can do. It's much better than lighting a candle or giving tzedakah or anything like that. So if you want to sponsor, that would be lovely. The money helps the shul in more ways than you can imagine, but also it helps to perpetuate the neshama of the deceased. We will mention their names, and you can choose the topic, and I will do my best to try research it and try to give you at least a half an hour to 40-minute shiur on that topic. So yashikach to Barry, yashikach to all of you for joining, and have a good night. I will post, Gavin will post the recording if you feel like sharing or listening again. Have a good night, everybody.